and I am very proud to be a Portuguese citizen. But allow me to speak Portuguese because I think that most of you will speak English, so I'll switch into English now.
Be talking about strategic planning. We have, since the beginning of the Renato's term, we started, as he mentioned before, a sort of a poll to understand the opinion of the people about what should be the mission and the vision of the society. As he already pointed out, we came up with the mission. I always try to make it in English and Spanish so that you can read. We came up with this format of the mission, as well as we came out with the 10 goals for the mandate. So this is not something that I will cover today, because we have discussed this before, and each one of you, from one way or another, you see some presentations from the different goals. So we talked about SSVP plus. We'll talk about formation tomorrow. We'll talk about all the 10 items. So I will not come back to these points. I wanted to raise your attention, and I discovered that, the attention is related to the number of the translation sets that don't fall into the floor. So, if the sets fall into the floor, it means that everybody's sleeping, and so it's not. I wanted to raise 3 fundamental questions that I think are really important for our reflection in the society. First of all, is the world improving? Is the world getting better in terms of poverty? Secondly, in this situation, what is our role as Society of St. Vincent de Paul? In fact, I wanted to say something different. I wanted to say, instead of our role, I wanted to say what's our relevance. I think this is a fundamental question. Are we relevant today? And if we are, and if we are not, what can we do to be more relevant, to be more important? And then I wanted to come back to history. Sometimes we forget about history. In many situations we are discussing here, the society has already gone through. We have had experiences in the last 200 years. So I think we should try to think about our history before we define our role. Let's go to the first one. Is the world improving? Well, when I ask this, I've seen some heads making, no, the world is not improving. It's not improving. But if you check the numbers, the world is improving. Poverty is reducing. And there are some estimates that show that maybe in 30 years from now, we won't have poverty, not the general poverty, but the extreme poverty will not exist anymore. This is challenging. And I think we have to believe in the numbers. The numbers come from The Economist, which is a very reputed, let's say, magazine. Then let's check the other indicators. I'm sorry it's small, but if you look at this is life expectancy. When Ozanam was alive here, the life expectancy was 26 years. 26 years. So Ozanam was 40 when he died. So he was 14 years above the average. Today, in 2010, it's 67, and in 2018, it's already 75. So that means a lot, not only because the world is improving, but because how we are structured. So maybe we should rethink things like who is old, who is not old. When I started at the society, I was started at 9. We used to say that people with 50, 55, they were old for us, the society. So I would be old today, okay? So I think this has changed completely. So the meaning of youth and old has changed completely. So we have to take into account not only that the world has improved, but also our constitution, our structure should be rethought. Then same thing, I mean, this is in Spanish, it's the accidents of cars and airplanes. Look how it went down. Same thing, deaths by natural catastrophes. Look at this. So it's going down. The world is improving. So there is another point, which is, if you look at the human history, the world has never developed in terms of technology as we do today. Just take one example. We took about, the first car was here, okay? This is the first car when it was at the beginning of last century. So it took us more or less 11,000 years to have the first car. And it took us only 15 years to have electric cars. So in the last 15 years, we have improved so much in terms of technology that, I mean, the speed of development in innovation and in technology is enormous. So this has to be something with us. Because as you know, I mean, St. Vincent has said, charity is inventive to infinite. He said this. So what would he do? What would Ozanam and he himself, Vincent de Paul, what would them do in this period here? They lived here. So what would they do if they were here? Okay, all these technologies, I mean, everything. I mean, health, for example, with drones, cars, and so on and so on and so forth. We had seen these photos before. On the other hand, what's the problem? What's the issue? Well, the issue, we've seen this before the last year, but I mean, I really wanted to emphasize this. Despite all the improvements we have, despite all the technology, we still have lots of changes. We still have lots of issues that we have to deal with. And I wanted to point out this one, which I think is really critical. 60% of our jobs, our current jobs, 60%, 1.1 billion people, they will lose their jobs in the next 10 years due to automation. I mean, the drivers that used to drive these cars, the trucks, they do not drive anymore. The people who used to build homes can be built by robots. People who used to work with in health would be totally different. So now we are printing food. You have already seen the new Pizza Hut car that prints the pizza so it prints. It's a printer that it prints the pizza in 3D printing. So all these jobs will affect the poor that we serve. So it means that 1.1 billion people will have to change their lives. It has to have a meaning for us. And I think this is probably, I think it's the most intriguing one. It's not only for the poor. The word that, I don't know exactly the translation in French and Spanish and maybe Portuguese, but the word that everybody says today is burnout. Everybody's burned out. So it means, burned out means, in Spanish could be stress com stress, ou esgotamento, que é o mesmo que em português. So we have never seen so many young people losing their lives. I mean, there are suicides, the number of suicides. I mean, there's so many young people with depression, taking drugs to get better from depression. And ourselves, I mean, we don't realize the change that we have. I mean, I'm surprised that nobody in the last 10 years, we have been talking for 10 minutes. I haven't seen anyone taking the WhatsApp. But I mean, it's difficult for us. It's difficult not to take the WhatsApp because we want to receive 10 messages. If we don't receive 10 messages, we're not popular anymore. So, but this changes completely our lives. It changes the way we pray, changes the way we reflect, changes the way we think about the society, the life of the society for the future. So I think that the society today is more important for us than maybe for the poor. And by the way, this is why the society was created. The society was created because the Ozanam and his friends, they had the same problem before. And they wanted to create a group of friends where they could feel well. So I think it's very important that we think about our role in this kind of world, which is getting better, which has more technology, which has lots of challenges, and which has to create opportunities for people to get better, not only the poor. Can history tell us anything? So the second question. Well, you probably have seen this picture many times. We are going through the fourth industrial revolution, the 4.0. Okay, so the first industrial revolution happened in 1784, more or less, when it started with mechanization, then it went with mass production in 2.0, then automation in last century, and very quickly it went to the internet and cyber. I have 5 minutes, okay. Cyber and physical systems, which is today. So the question is, maybe we are at the same position, at the same situation Ozanam was before. Maybe we're exactly at the same position. They had technological improvements in the first revolution. They had social problems. Paris was a very difficult city. People were dying on the streets. And there was a lot of materialism. So this was the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in 1833. So I want to just to come back to the mission and to point out the three elements of our mission. And I would like to ask you, each one of you, to think about how we are in these 3 points. The three elements of our mission, as Renato has said before, is, first of all, search for holiness. We all search for our own holiness as well as for the poor. But I mean, for our holiness, we have to be holy. When a president of a national council, and we see many examples in the world, when a president of a national council takes money from the national council in a way that should not be done, we are hurting the society much more than anything else. It may be in a conference, it may be in a council. Secondly, a service to the poor. Are we really thinking about new ways of serving the poor? And number three, which I think is the most important one, I made the question yesterday about the church and about migration, but we're forgetting advocacy for justice. So how many times are we, the General Council, or maybe national councils, how many times are we called from the church or from the society, from the normal society, or from the governments to talk about the poor? How many times? So we can't forget that Ozanam was the one who was the predecessor of the Heaven of Adam. So he was the first one who created the idea of having taxes in a good way, not the way we have today, unfortunately, but in a good way of sharing money, of getting money to share with the people in need. So are we the society, are we the General Council, are we happy with the way we are advocating, or we are being called to advocacy? When I came here, I was discussing with Bertrand about these 3 points, and he raised basically 3 points, which are exactly the same ones, and I'm happy to realize that we are aligned. So he mentioned spirituality, relation with the poor, and role at the church. So advocacy is very much related to the church. I don't know if you want to say something or afterwards. Do you want to? Tu veux parler quelque chose sur ça? Ça va?
Say something on that? Well, thank you.
Non, voilà, non.
Well, Eduardo talked about a few things that I think are very interesting that really are a part of this issue. But I think there's a fundamental issue here in relation to poverty, and that is that not so much the issue of material poverty, but the relationship with the poor. This is a key point. It's not so much about service, it's about a personal relationship with the poor. That's really something that's the heart of the society. And I think that's something we really need to look into deeply, and something we need to work on, the relationship with the poor.
La question de la spiritualité, ça a été évoqué par beaucoup, mais il faut approfondir la spiritualité.
Has been tackled by many, but we have to deepen in the ascension of spirituality. The second point, because I think it is new, it is the role of the lay person in a church in crisis. There is the crisis of clericalism, as the Pope has said. So I would say that the figure of Frederick Ozanam is for us a model. He's a guide, he's inspiring in relation to what the role of the lay person has to be in the church. And when I say the role of the lay is in the governance of the church, not only helping the priests or bishops, it is a key role, an historical key role. Is not going to happen overnight, but the Society of St. Vincent de Paul is really very well situated thanks to its history to deepen in this question.
Ago about the role, our role towards the church. So I mean, we had the same problem when Ozanam was alive. I mean, they created the Conference of History to defend the church. So we don't need to defend the pedophily. But we have to defend the church. I mean, we don't need to defend the people, but we have to defend the doctrine, the church, the essence of the church. So I think we're putting this here so that each one of us can reflect and think, are we doing our job here? Or can we do something else? Or can we be better at understanding the poor, living with the poor, at spiritual, at holiness, creating holy leaders, and as well as our role in advocacy. Well, what I wanted to propose is an effort, a strategic effort, which I'm calling Ozanam 2033, for obvious reasons. It will be 200 years. And people could say, well, 20? Pardon? 33, oui. So we're going to be 200 years. It's 14 years from now. Some people could say, well, 14 years, come on, this is very far away. But I think we need to think, and I think history can tell a lot. When the society was getting old, in the 60s, there was one president of the General Council, I think it was Pierre Chouard. Je dois finir, non? Je vais finir. Pierre Chouard. Well, he was an old person, and he decided to create something, the youth movement. And he decided to make it the first event in Latin America, a Pan-American youth meeting, which was in 1966. An effort of one person, the idea of one person, has led to the fact that today, for example, in Brazil, we have 250,000 and about 100,000 young people. So maybe we are at this point in time. Maybe we are at the point where we can use technology and use innovation to prepare the society for the future, to increase our relevance. And then I finish by the final proposal. I think we should work on 4 things, 4 strategic issues: communication, innovation, reflection, advocacy, and organization. And to be very, very practical, there are things that are already being done. In communication, I think it's important the word of mouth. So, I mean, we have to tell the people, we are based on 3 things. Our mission is 3 things. We're not complicated. We're different from others. We want to be holy. We want to be close to the poor. We want to advocate for justice. It's easy, very easy to communicate. We have created a Twitter, which is called Ozanam, for obvious reasons. And this Twitter here it's in English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. We just created it 2 weeks ago, so we're starting. So we'll be working on that. And just talking meetings, organize meetings, talk about our role in the new world. Reflection advocacy. Tomorrow we're going to, Spain has produced a book which talks about reflections. So for the 52 weeks of the year, for the cycles A, B, and C, we'll have a reflection, a Vincentian reflection with the readings, which will talk about the vocation. But we'll have this in our phones. So the same thing is going to be in our phones, not in the books, but in the phones, in about 2 weeks from now, in Portuguese. We are asking for volunteers to translate into English and French. Spanish is already done. But if you know anybody who could help us translating these readings, these reflections in English and French, please be welcome. And we're creating a blog which is called Les Nouvelles. So we're recreating Les Nouvelles, which is you all know that Les Nouvelles was the newspaper that Ozanam had at his time. So it's going to be called New Era, Les Nouvelles, Nova Era, Nueva Era in Spanish. So these are tools that we already have. And for the last 2 minutes, innovation. We all talk about innovation. So we have created something which is called Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a place where you can register any innovation you see. For example, if there is anything in a project in Africa that worked well in agriculture, put it in Wikipedia. So we'll distribute the access to this application in the next days. And finally, I really think we should organize ourselves. I think we should really propose that we have a commission which is formed by 5 or 6 people, so that we can reinforce the vocation, reinforce all these things there. I mean, I won't write Ozanam English and French and Spanish, because, I mean, I can't do it well. But we should have someone who can produce the Twitters in English, Spanish, and French, as well as the Les Nouvelles, as well as all the other tools. So this is trying to be more practical. But I think most important is to reflect and to see if this thing could probably be replicated in the regions, in the countries, or how we can work together with the countries so that we can make this work, and so that we can dream with a different, maybe a better society when we accomplish the 200th anniversary. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Merci. Merci, Eduardo.
I want to, many of you know this photo. I want to just to reinforce this photo, because this guy, he worked for Kodak in the 60s. This young guy, 70s. And so he said to the board of Kodak, you should change the way you make photos. You should make it digital. At that point, it was not even digital because it was done with this thing here. which was not digital. And the board of Kodak said, I won't do it because my business is photos. You remember these things, these films that we used to buy? 24, and only 12 of them and 10 of them went well. The others we had to throw away. So this was Kodak. And this guy decided to create his own company, a digital company. Today, does anybody buy Kodak films? It's over. Kodak is gone. So I think the lesson is we can't lose the opportunity. We can't lose the opportunity. It's for us to have the opportunity to change, to innovate, to create something completely different. Thank you.
Merci vraiment, c'était très intéressant.